We're looking at anxiety in sport. We've got three things to cover. We're going to firstly look at what anxiety is. We're going to then move on to competition anxiety, and then we're going to look at how to manage anxiety. And what I've got is a lovely 5-point plan that will help you identify your anxiety levels, explore why you become anxious, offer some suggestions about how to manage your anxiety, or reinterpret some of the situations or the feelings so that that anxiety is not so debilitative, but it will just about get you ready to deliver the kind of performance you'll be really happy with, and then to reevaluate. So sit back, it should be pretty good, and we should make some progress in managing your inner emotional. Okay, so let's get to the point where we're looking to manage anxiety, and we've got a 5-point plan. Step 1 is to look at answering the question: if I want to perform better, should I try to reduce my anxiety? Should I increase my anxiety? I need to be able to assess my anxiety. I need to make a choice based on the anxiety performance relationship. That's my own against my own anxiety levels. Second is to look at the question: why am I anxious? What is the message being sent? And it's really, really important to get to know what that message is. Step 3 is to look at psychological skills that you use. Most athletes have a whole range of strategies that they use to manage their emotions. We'll talk about those in a little bit more detail as we get to them, but it's then looking at how to use psychological skills to help you perform better, and to help you feel differently, or to help you perform better through helping you feel differently. But it's using those psychological skills to get the most out of them. Step 4 is to then go, how do I improve my use of psychological skills? So identify the ones we want to use, and then how do we improve them? How do we give our mental game a tune-up? And we'll look at that as well. And then step 5 is to reflect and evaluate. It's in a circle, and it's a beautiful circle as well. It's a beautiful way of doing it in that it's not that beautiful, and it's quite nice. It just goes round, and the computer did all the drawings, not me. But it is a circle, and it is about reflecting on whether anxiety still has the same effect. Now you've got to grips with possibly the cause of it, or you've got some really good effective use of strategies to make you feel like you're going to perform better and you're confident. You've reduced the uncertainty of performance. So it's reflecting on that process so that you're working on in the here and now about the sort of feelings you get each time you go to perform, and you can you can learn from the previous performance, and that feeds forward to the next performance. So it's that reflective process, and it goes full circle to what goes on next. So step 1, what to do, is assess whether you want to reduce anxiety, maintain it, or raise it. So you need to know how anxious do you feel. You need to know how does that influence how you perform. So you need to self-assess your own anxiety performance relationship. So let's look at doing that right now. And so step 1. So let's look at doing a individualized self-assessment of anxiety performance relationship. Well, here's a nice graph. Let's go behind that, double click the and let's get to the data. There's the data. We click on that. That flashes up the data. So we have someone here with 5 performances. We're going to assess them on a scale here from not anxious to very anxious on a 1 to 7 scale. We're going to ask them to how well they performed, and it's either very good performance, performed to expectations, or a bad performance, underperformed, just not happy with it, could have done better. So we start off with good performance, and let's say, oh yeah, that's quite low in anxious. Think back to another competition last week. 2 again, not anxious at all, really good, calm you up. And again, and let's think some poor performances. Oh dear me, dear. 11 toilet stops. Oh dear, the night before, dreadful thoughts. Oh dear, put off by some other and so on. And I'm going through this slightly in order to get some extreme. You can see over here, that as though I put some averages in there, and what that's going to do quite nicely is that we've got good performances, low anxiety, poor performances, very high anxiety. That may not be the case. I'll flip that round to what that looks like on the graph, and there it is. Good performance is very low, poor performance is very high, and we can create this very differently. Someone might go, oh, that's not true, and I get really anxious when I perform really well. And it's almost exactly the same, and then that will flip round to the chart, and there we go, someone who is very anxious, when they perform very well. But we're identifying their individual anxieties. It might be both of them might be very low. It might get someone who, and we've got, whether for both cases, but we've got individualized anxiety performance relation, which gives us a basis to know what to do next. It is about finding out why you're anxious, and this is really important. The anxiety is a signal to know the reasons why that might be the case. So you need to think about what that is and spend some time reflecting on the reasons for those unpleasant feelings, that anxiety. Is it about achieving a highly difficult goal? Is that goal just a bit too hard? Is it unattainable? And we have done several studies where we've looked at looked at factors that relate to anxiety, and setting a difficult goal is one of the major predictors of anxiety. And people are, it's good to challenge yourself, but if the anxiety that you generate from your goal becomes dysfunctional, then the goal itself is actually, setting that challenging goal is actually not helping you, because you're doing something which is then creating another process that is stopping you from achieving it. So relaxing the goal might be one way of doing it if anxiety is debilitating your performance. If, of course, that if anxiety is helpful performance and the difficult goal is gets you anxious, then you might, that's one way of keeping your anxiety levels high, if that's how it is, if that's how it is for you. But it's something to think about, the relative difficulty of the goal. If that's making it you feel really anxious, it's probably not worth trying to attain every single time. Be a bit more selective in how you set goals. The second great one, and we get this, and we get this from or get this occurring in professional sport very, very frequently, is over egging the importance of the goal above and beyond sport. The idea that your self-esteem, your self-worth is absolutely tied down to the one single performance. And it is, of course, achieving your goals in sport is really, really important, but not the only thing. The sun will still shine the next day, people will still like you. You're not in a contingent relationship with your friends, your family, that you have to be a brilliant athlete in order to be popular. It's not like that at all. And the idea of seeing things in perspective, seeing that it's important to do well, but it's not the only thing that you need to do, because that will really drive your anxiety high if that's the only thing that matters, and it can really get in the way of you concentrating on what you need to do to deliver a really good performance. So it's not that's not to say you don't take things seriously, but it's just about managing your beliefs regarding that performance. It's absolutely okay to say that playing sport is the most important thing for the time that you're doing it, because that's exactly what you want to be doing. Your 100% of your concentration wants to be focused on delivering the best possible performance in the time it takes to complete the competition. So if it's a 90-minute game, you want to be 100% concentrated on delivering the best possible performance on that day. And that's about that's the importance. That's about concentrating on the things that matter, and it's not over-egging how long that'll go forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And that can be really debilitating for your mindset, is if you get into some really dysfunctional thoughts about just how damning one performance can be in terms of your own self-esteem. Just protecting yourself from that. So step 3 is where we get into the nitty-gritty of some of the psychological skills and techniques which we can use to try and make you get control of your emotions. And there are lots and lots and lots. I've just picked a few to start with, and these are ones that athletes tend to do naturally. We did a lovely study, 2001 actually, with Matt Stevens, where we looked at the strategies that athletes use to manage their own emotions. And we've got a whole list of things, and the list is there. So we know what that study tells us is that people already do these things under their own choice. We don't need to teach. There's not had a sports psychologist teaching them. They seem to pick these things up naturally. Let's look at some of them. Things like setting goals, things like using imagery, things like self-talk, and more recently things like listening to music to motivate yourself and listening to music to relax. And voice went up a bit then. Two questions you need to pose really is, do I need to do more of these psychological skills? Quite possibly, and some of the literature in sport psychology would suggest that more is better, but I am not that convinced that is the case, and we know from our other research that it isn't necessarily about more is better, but about getting better at the ones that you can use and be able to use them at the appropriate time. So you don't have to set more goals, but you're aware of those goals and you use goals to motivate you. It's about having the psychological skills ready and waiting to use at precisely the point that you need them. And the voice went up again there. That's getting entertaining. So psychological skills to help you perform better, and what we've got is a lot of evidence to say that this is good advice. So let's go through 5. One is to set goals that are under your control. A goal is a challenge, and what you want is one that is completely under your control. And what I like to do is encourage people to think about goals which relate to the skills required to deliver a successful performance. So if this is taking a penalty, it's about putting the ball down. It's about having a goal to kick through the centre of the ball, so go through the mechanics of kicking it really well, a really good feel for the ball. If it's cycling, it's about getting into a good rhythm. If it's running, it's about running in having a smooth action. It's about the skills required to deliver performance. It's about actions that are entirely under your control. Because if you focus all your efforts on those, you will do the best performance that's possible. Second up is imagery, the idea of mentally going through a performance, seeing yourself performing well. And with anxiety, it's really good to see yourself overcoming difficult challenges, seeing yourself performing in a situation where you might be anxious, where the threat to achieving that goal, where the challenge is really high. You're immersed in the situation, you're coping with anxiety by performing really well. You are maybe leading your team by coping really well with that anxiety. And one of the nice things, I've not talked about it in this talk, is the idea that if you are really confident and really act as though you're in control of your emotions and you're in a team setting, those emotions can transfer to other people's emotions. So the idea that if I act calm now, I won't need to act calm later, because the other people will catch that emotion and start acting calm themselves, and the climate around you will be really good. Step 3 is talk yourself into being confident. The idea of using self-talk, about positive self-talk. Talk yourself through the challenge. Talk yourself through achieving the process type goals I talked about at this first part. Seeing yourself overcoming a difficult challenge, and that's really important with the anxiety management. You've got to do these kind of skills in the situation which is where you're likely to feel the most anxious. So if it is, for example, a penalty taker, is to think through putting the ball down in a really pressured situation, what that's likely to feel like, what thoughts are likely to be running through your mind, and then just change all those so they're really positive. Number 4 is listening to motivating music. Really good in the warm-up, really good in the pre-competition starts. The idea that this listening to motivating music. You can go through your playlist and get the 4 or 5 tracks that bring back intense and powerful emotions that are associated with strength, with success. You'll have your own different types of music. If it was me, you might well be getting Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols, or Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath. But I'm sure, I know that's not going to be everybody's what everyone's going to like, and that's absolutely why we all have earphones to listen to music prior to competition, and it's probably why running races, etc., don't have so many music going around the side, because what one person likes, the other person's not so keen on. Another approach to using music, another why earphones are really good, is that while one person's trying to get themselves psyched up, putting powerful music on, going on around them, the other one is putting really calm music that's associated with calmness and confidence. And I've worked with a professional boxer where we kind of struggled with some of the relaxation stuff I was talking to him about, and he says, look, I can just put some music on. He went through his playlist of different, very different this is the time CDs as they were, and selected a playlist which was really calm and motivating. He played it in the afternoon when I wanted to relax, get calm. Absolutely fabulous. And just relating to the box, we had the warm up and the preparation through the emotional states we wanted prior to the competition, all tuned into music. So an hour before, we had the relaxing music, which was about feeling calm, and then we start building up with the warm-up, and then we, in other words, as we build up with the warm-up to get more physical, get ready for the competition, the music changed so it sort of evoked the emotions that we wanted to feel. Terrific way of doing it. We've got the idea now is that we've got starting to think about using psychological skills. Step 4 is all about how to improve your use of psychological skills. Give your mental skills a tune-up. So get into the habit of setting process goals for each training session. Set the goals out, what you want to achieve, and then break those down until they can be process focused. So you focus on the skills and get ways of trying to judge whether you have achieved those goals. But you need to be setting a goal before a training session. You need to get into the habit of using these type of skills so that they are not things that you suddenly do on the day before competition and you, in essence, overload yourself. Get your positive self-talk to be positive, motivation and helpful. And that can be as simple as doing a daily diary where you notice what you say to yourself. And I think the lovely thing about something like that, a daily diary, is that it's such a simple way of becoming self-aware of what you say to yourself. And all you do is you say to yourself when you look at what you've written down about what you said about yourself, is, would I speak to someone else like that? And if I heard someone else speaking to someone else like that, what would I do? And the likely answer to that is not even rocket scientist to work this out, is you would accept it. You wouldn't accept it. So why do you accept it to yourself? It's not. You shouldn't do it. Just stop doing it. Stop. 3 is get the imagery more vibrant. Get it in the first person. You have your TV sets. Sometimes the screen goes a bit fuzzy. You don't just give it a good slap. In the good old days, we used to get the knobs at the side and give them a little twist. And that little twist used to tune the TV in a bit more. Now what we do is we reset the thing and it refines the channels. But it's not too dissimilar. So what you're going to do if you can't get imagery is to then go, actually that's not very clear. If it's not very clear, it's not very helpful. Is to tune that up, try and get it sharper images. And you can do that by practicing on very simple objects. So the idea of holding an image with an apple, for example. Look at the apple, close your eyes, image the apple. How long does the apple stay there in your mind? You can get better at imagery doing it that way. And then, as you get better at imagery, you can start to image certain sections of performance. So if it's the last 100 meters of a running race, and that 100 meters takes you X amount of seconds, then see the start of the 100 meters beginning, press start on your stopwatch, and image the last process. And of course, you can see I'm going with this, it should be the same time. But then once you're doing that, you're seeing it in the first person, you're seeing it in real time, you're reliving those experiences. They are making a blueprint for when you get to those experiences in the real life, you'll be ready to use them. Stage 4 is to practice the skills and simulate these stressful situations. Now, the idea that we could practice something like penalty taking and just knock balls into the goal, and then when we're ready for the when we go into competition and it's stressful, we've not practiced at all. In order to get these skills in action, in order to simulate the effects that we're going to be really anxious when we're going to deliver them, in things like imagery, in things like goal setting, in things like self-talk, we need to put these in stressful situations. So imagine yourself in the World Cup final, putting the ball down, confidently striding back. You have to do the slightly American accent, but they won't. Americans are unlikely to be in the final. More likely a Spanish person to be in the final, but I can't do a Spanish accent. But you get the idea that if you put that in the real situation, mentally rehearsing yourself in something which is really stressful, that act will kick in emotions such as anxiety. If you get the situation close to what it is in reality, close to what it's like as your best guess to reality, or most likelihood close to reality, you'll start feeling unpleasant emotions, you'll start feeling anxiety, and that'll give you a real indicator of what it's going to be like. Now, step 5 is about reflection. It's about evaluation. It's about repeating the process, and it's about working out whether it worked and what it did not work. And we're very good at starting these sort of self-help packages, but we're not always that good at just fine-tuning them. We're quite good at going, yep, didn't work for me, rubbish, in that sort of blunt way, rather than going, well, it worked a little bit, and really collecting some data on yourself so that you know when it worked, when it didn't work, and you could possibly give reasons so that you can repeat when it works, so that you get the most out of anything you're trying to do to try and make yourself go better, so you really understand the process and what's going on. And that sort of evaluation, that reflection, that sort of detailed analysis of thinking through how it worked, what worked and why, will give you some real insight into that process. So the reminder: step 1, assess your anxiety levels. Step 2, what's the message that's coming from that anxiety. Step 3 is, how do I use psychological skills to make me perform better. Step 4 is, how do I improve my psychological skills. And step 5, absolutely critical, is reflect and evaluate. And the circle goes round. The circle goes round, and you should start getting a hold of your anxiety. You should also start performing better. First is the idea that anxiety is normal. Athletes experience it. It's absolutely normal. If you're really anxious, that is how lots and lots and lots of other people are feeling. Second is that anxiety has a message, and it's about learning what that message says. Third, it's about using psychological skills to help you get into the mental state ready to perform better. These psychological skills can really get you focusing on the parts that matter to deliver the best performance possible. Tune those psychological skills up and then reassess, and you will benefit from such a process. You'll benefit from such a process in whether that is only about managing anxiety, but it should be about performing better also. So let's look at some resources that are available to follow this work up. We did an expert statement on emotion regulation in sport with the British Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences, and that's a really nice piece of work. And it's not nice because it's not only nice because I wrote it, and it's not really I didn't write most of it. Chris Beattie wrote most of it, who writes much better than me anyway. I just chipped in with some ideas. But it's a nicely thing. It's a nice little short article that packages together, that talks about how we can manage our emotions, what the function of our emotions is. A lot of things I've been talking about, and it's a nice, concise package, and it's free via the BASES website. All the others did absolutely fabulous too. I've not picked out Chris because he's got a funny hat on the right hand side. And if you want to see something quite funny, just do a Google search of Mark Jones as a goalkeeper for staffs. I only saw that recently, and it's absolutely fabulous. Some more resources. These are all free, and or free to find anyway. You've got my website. You've got my website in terms of the University of Wolverhampton. You've got my Google Scholar link, and that's a really quite nice way of finding all the research that's been done in any area. But that link there would take you to my articles, which many of them you can download for free. We recently did a book on emotion called Should I Strap a Battery to My Head and Other Questions About Emotion, which is part of a project called Emotion Regulation of Others and Self, which is absolutely fabulous, and that is available from Amazon. It's really, really, really good book. You've got an assessment package called Assess Your Mood by Mood Profiling on Mood Profiling. You've got the Emotion Regulation website, and you've got journals called journals such as Journal of Sports Science and Medicine, which are free, and you can download that work. Just download it by click, and there it is. And some top academics, I've mentioned a few of them in this presentation, of absolutely fabulous websites. Roy Baumeister's work, absolutely superb. James Gross, another leading figure in emotion regulation, and Randolph Ness, a really good researcher in evolutionary psychology. Absolutely fascinated by that work. It's not sports psychology, but it really is interesting psychology, which underpins a lot of the work which I've been talking about. Some other websites that I've done work on, which are pretty easy to work to get, is I think it's quite funny, the London Marathon Professor Motivation. My PB in a marathon is actually much quicker than that. It's been much quicker than that for some while. It's 3 hours 3, I think it is. Very disappointing. I desperately tried to go under 4, but I just don't quite get the good course on the day where I've got good legs. But I've still got a few years left to crack at that challenge. But these are really nice short resources. You click, you can see what's going on. 48 seconds, 53 seconds. And it talks about music, talks about mental strength, talks about how anxiety can be motivational. I've done this in ages. I've got it in 43 seconds there we go. Some references that I've used. I try to make these all freely available as possible via open access research, and this is evidence based. All of this, some absolutely fabulous pieces of articles. They're not necessarily the ones I've done, but there'll be an academic side who will be reading this, so they can get hold of this. Some recent publications which we've been working with, and these will all be able to access most of these. You can see the blue underneath, and that's so you can access those really, really easily. And there's some more. Oh, there's some more. I've been a bit busy, haven't I? But you get the idea. It's evidence based, and it's that's how it should be. Conjure this stuff up from nowhere. You want it to be based on research, on theory, and an appropriate basis. And that's it. All I can say, it's been emotional.